October 18th, 2021 meeting of the Plan Commission to order. First, we will hear from Jesse Poole, our technical facilitator. Jesse.
All right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. The chair, clerk, and technical facilitator are responsible for muting and unmuting committee members. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. During any roll call, all panelists will be unmuted briefly. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which their hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. The first item on our agenda is Plan Commission public comment period. I do not believe we have any public comment. Could you confirm, Heather? Yes, okay. The next item is communications, disclosures, and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Do we have any disclosures or recusals or communications? Seeing none, I do have one item to mention. We will be having a new Plan Commission member starting with our next meeting, assuming that he is confirmed by the Common Council, which I have no reason to think he would not be, and that is Maurice Shepard. Maurice is with Madison College. He served on the Plan Commission maybe about 5 years ago. I'm not sure exactly how long ago, for several years. So he does have some background and experience, and we will welcome him at our next Plan Commission meeting. Okay, the next, Heather, did you have anything you wanted to add in regard to Maurice?
Just that from a staff perspective, we're really excited to have him back as part of the commission. And I think he's excited to rejoin as well. So,
okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda, we have the minutes of the September 30th special meeting and the minutes of the October 4th regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to either of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval? Moved by Commissioner Cantrell. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Heck. We will come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion to pass the minutes is approved unanimously. Next is a review of our upcoming meetings. The next meeting, the next regular meeting will be on November 8th, and then there will also be one on November 22nd and December 13th. And we do have a special meeting scheduled for December 9th. Okay, next we will move to our consent agenda. which does include referrals as well as routine business. It's the custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda those items on which staff believes an application has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by various city departments, and on which the applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition to the item. Those items are placed onto a consent agenda, and they're addressed at the beginning of our meeting, and people interested in those items can disconnect unless a member of the commission requests separation, in which case the item is removed from the consent agenda and taken in the regular course of business. Of the items before us today, the following are proposed for the consent agenda. Agenda item 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Are there any requests for separation? And I see that Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. This is not a request for separation. Would it be appropriate, though, to ask a question of staff about one?
Yes, that would be fine.
About number 12, I noticed that the property is for sale. It noted that it's for sale, and also that the owners are proposing a pretty substantial renovation. Does this approval expire? I mean, is the expectation that the current owner is going to proceed with this, even though the building is for sale? Do we know anything about that, or should we know anything about that?
Well, we don't. I believe that the applicant is intending to move forward with the changes, but the approval would actually run with the property. So regardless of who the property owner is, that approval would run with the property, and it's good. It's valid for 1 year with the opportunity to extend by an additional 2 years after that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Heather, did you have something else that you?
I do. I noticed a later registrant. There is a registrant listed in opposition on number 8 and wishing to speak. And so we should remove that from the consent agenda.
Okay, so remove just 8 or 8 and 9?
Well, 8, 9, and 10 actually all work together. And so
Okay.
I think that it would be fine to remove all of them.
Okay, so we will be removing those then from the consent agenda. Okay, so I will then read into the record those items which remain on the consent agenda. The first one is agenda item 2, Legistar 67596, authorizing the City of Madison to accept ownership of art sculptures from the Friends of Sid Boyum to be placed on city-owned property in exchange for ongoing maintenance of the sculptures by an established neighborhood association after city staff review and approve of the sculptures and their locations at the time of each request. Agenda item 3, Legistar 67718, second substitute, amending the 2021 adopted Parks Division capital budget and authorizing the execution of a purchase and sale agreement between the City of Madison and Cherokee Park for the city's purchase of approximately 22 acres located at the southeast corner of North Sherman Avenue and Wheeler Road for the expansion of Whitetail Ridge Park and the preservation of urban forestry canopy. Agenda item 5, Legistar 67052, located at 2300 South Park Street, 14th Alder District, Urban Design District 7, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish the north wing of the Village on Park Commercial Center to create additional parking for the campus. And agenda item 6, Legistar 67274, located at 8033 through 8101 Excelsior Drive, 9th Alder District. Consideration of a demolition permit to demolish an office building to allow an expansion of an adjacent office building. Agenda item 7, Legistar 67275, approving a certified survey map of property owned by University of Wisconsin Credit Union located at 8033 through 8101 Excelsior Drive, 9th Alder District. Agenda item 11, Legistar 67278, located at 466 Orchard Drive, 10th Alder District. Consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence and construct a new single-family residence. Agenda item 12, Legistar 67279, located at 1501 Monroe Street, 13th Alder District. Consideration of a conditional use in the traditional shopping street district for a mixed-use building containing more than 48 dwelling units to allow a hotel to be converted into a mixed-use building containing 3,000 square feet of commercial space and 50 apartments. Agenda item 13, Legistar 67280, located at 6722 Odana Road, 19th Alder District. Consideration of a conditional use in the commercial center district for animal boarding. And agenda item 14, Legistar 67273, approving the revised preliminary plat and final plat of the American Center East Park 4th edition on property addressed at 4902 East Park Boulevard, 17th Alder District. I will ask for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Solheim. And we will come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hand to object, the motion passes unanimously. Moving then to the next item on our agenda, agenda item 4, Legistar 67412, creating section 28.022 through 00517 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 3202 Dairy Drive, 16th Alder District, from Industrial Limited District to Mission Camp District. And I believe that Heather Stouter has some comments on that before we will hear from registrants. Heather.
Yes, thank you, Chair Zellers. I just have a quick foundation to set, and then after the public comments, I just wanted to mention we also have several colleagues from other agencies that will be here in case questions should arise. We have Captain Jamar Geary from Madison Police Department, Community Development Division Director Jim O'Keefe. We have Stephen King, Brent Paba, and I believe Brian Cooper may be coming from the engineering facilities section, and then also Matt Tucker from building inspection, who you know well. Wanted to set things up with this one. This is, as Chair Zellers mentioned, simply a rezoning of property. It's a 1.8 acre site on the city's southeast side, where under an emergency order adopted by the council on August 31st, city staff have been working to prepare the site for a more permanent version of a campground site with shelters that I'll show you a couple pictures of here momentarily, that would accommodate up to 30 people on this property. And as you can imagine, the primary reason for the emergency order was the approaching winter weather and the desire to come up with safe and viable alternatives to the campground site that is currently at the Rindall Park location. So I'll just share a couple of slides with the commission. Again, the rezoning is what's before you this evening. Staff has recommended approval of the rezoning and wanted to provide a little bit more information that can help you as you think about whether you might have questions at the end of the public testimony. So some of the rationale for choosing the site on the southeast side, 3202 Dairy Drive, the city was working under a set of criteria as we worked to choose one of what could end up being two alternative sites to Rindall. In order to move quickly to create safe and viable alternatives to Rindall, the site needed to be owned by the city and not be a park, large enough to support 25 or 30 users, have access to transit and food, grocery store, and also be served by public water and sewer. This site at Dairy Drive does check all of those boxes. Some of the specifications for the site, it is a fixed property. Again, it's 1.8 acres and it is enclosed with a 6-foot privacy fence. There will be, as of the middle of November or early November, 30 climate-controlled small shelters, each with electrical service on the site, and each will be limited to one occupant. Importantly, as there are couples who may want to utilize this site, couples are more than welcome, and they will actually be designated 2 shelters. So each shelter will be designated to one occupant. Of course, they can move as needed, but want to make sure that every single individual has a shelter. There will be an on-site common bathroom and shower facility, six bathrooms for the site, on-site garbage and recycling collection, and the site will be in compliance with the state campground regulations, although a very unique campground within the state. Importantly, the site will be actively managed by paid on-site staff, and our community development division is working to select and work with a potential partner for that on-site management as we speak. And also auto parking is not provided on the site, but rather will be occurring on nearby streets. There is some bike parking provided on site. So here's just an overview of the vacant site today, again at the corner of Prairie Dock and Dairy Drive. And the site plan here has been taken to the next level by our city engineering facilities staff and is available in Legistar as well. But I'll just point out, I think this one's actually nice and easy to read. Here we have the blue boxes here are the shelters. There's an asphalt fire lane that will be in the middle of the site. We have green picnic tables in this northeast area. And then this is the shared bathroom facility and also an office building here in the southeast corner of the site. The trash enclosure is here. And again, the site is surrounded by a 6-foot privacy fence. And these are a couple pictures of the shelters that will be delivered for construction on the site in the next few weeks. Each is 8 by 8, 64 square feet. With locking doors, windows, beds that can fold up. Each has electricity, heating and cooling. Small refrigerator will be provided, and the basic safety features as well. And this is an in-progress photo of a building that was actually relocated from the Hilldale area on the near west side. It's being remodeled inside to accommodate 6 restrooms, each with a toilet, sink, and shower, and an office space for the on-site management. And the management for the site, again, is currently being worked out, and that will end up with a contract with a management partner who will be responsible for these things. And so importantly, and what we don't see in sort of a makeshift campsite today is that this site will have resident case management. And so linkages to housing opportunities, employment opportunities, et cetera, paid on-site staffing during the day and evening hours, and a around-the-clock phone line available. Basic property maintenance will be expected of the management partner, and monitoring of the activities not only on the site but around the site for safety. Coordination of transportation as needed for the residents, maintenance of good relationships with surrounding businesses, and also coordination of donations, which are expected to come to the site on a regular basis. So that is a very quick overview. Again, the Plan Commission is being asked to make a recommendation to the Common Council to rezone this property from industrial limited to the brand new Mission Camp District, where this use would be a permitted use, so long as all of the supplemental requirements laid out in the staff report are addressed. And I think with that, I'll stop there. And after public comments, again, several colleagues are here to address questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. So we will move on then to registrants. The first registrant is Kevin Femel. Prairie Dock Drive, Madison opposed, wishing to speak, representing EMS Industrial Incorporated, a business located on Prairie Dock Drive in Madison. Kevin, you have 3 minutes.
Kevin, you may have a prompt to unmute yourself.
Okay, that should work. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, thanks a lot. Kevin Femel, I'm president with EMS Industrial. We are located right next to the proposed site. As a business, we do oppose the proposed site for a number of reasons. Obviously, as citizens in Dane County, we empathize and support the need to help the homeless population to get the proper support needed. We just feel that this encampment in the middle of a business park, close to residential homes, also being a camp that is not close to many of the businesses to support the homeless community is a mistake. The homeless community themselves have expressed concern of the location of this. The response by employees and businesses in our area has been very loud and one of negativity because of this proposed site. What has really fueled these reactions is the constant flow of news coming from Rendell Park and other areas. Obviously, as a business president, my responsibility is the safety of our employees. We have over 100 team members at EMS, and the media and articles about Rendell Park and other locations has caused great concern with our employees. Whether it's a stabbing that's occurred in July, other domestic violence issues at these camps, other articles of drugs, rape, and substantial abuse. Our employees are concerned it's going to happen right next to us. We're 25 yards from this encampment. So there's a tremendous amount of concern that our employees feel. We have employees that work at night. They work on weekends. They're walking through our parking lot at 2 a.m., which is right next to this. So a lot of concern there. Another significant concern I would talk about is the lack of screening with this encampment. We received conflicting reports about the screening from city officials. One of the things I'd like to talk about is the multiple businesses and places of worship that have kids routinely present. And the church right across the street from this encampment serves the under-supported, of many of which are kids. The same goes for a basketball training facility, which is also right next door to this encampment. There's going to be kids by this all the time. And we were told by city officials that sexual predators could be within the walls of this encampment. It's befuddling to me that isn't a ginormous concern. And I don't know what message the city is sending by not having greater screening. Again, maybe that's changed. We continue to get conflicting reports on this one, but hopefully to hear some answers on that. And lastly, I would hit on the fact that as a business, we need customers, obviously, to keep our doors open. We're blessed to have a great business who supports a lot of families in Dane County. Unfortunately, we have a lot of business right now, a lot of our customers that have expressed concern with the safety of what is happening right next to us. We have 30 customers at least daily that come to our business, and they've expressed concerns, again, with the safety. The parking is always an issue. Over at Rendell Park, it was a disaster. We have homeless parking issues in our neighborhood right now, and our customers will drive right through that. Have expressed a lot of concern with regard to the safety, with regard to the whole process. So all in all, it's a challenging and complicated task, and finding a suitable and supportive way to uplift the homeless community. As a business, we are an advocate in this mission. However, due to the reasons above and many others, we don't support this site as a place for this mission. So thank you for giving me my time.
Thank you for speaking. The next registrant is Jeff Gillis, Femright Drive, Madison opposed and wishing to speak. Jeff, you have 3 minutes.
Jeff, you're unmuted on Zoom. Oh, you're now muted. All right, Jeff, you're unmuted on our end. If you're unable to speak, you might have a mute button on your headset or on your microphone that's on. We're still unable to hear you, Jeff. It might be best if you just exit the meeting and then come back in, and we can see if we can come back to you.
Okay, let's move on to Steve Verberg, Wendy Road, Madison, in support and wishing to speak. Steve, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. I live a short distance from the proposed sheltered encampment, and writing to urge you to approve the zoning to allow the operation of the site. It's really discouraging to hear some of the comments suggesting that because there could be sexual predators somewhere, that means that there will be. In fact, in every neighborhood in Madison, rich and poor, if you look at the sexual assault statistics compiled by Madison Police, in every neighborhood, there are sexual predators. And there are people who commit all kinds of crimes, who are living under roofs and behind closed doors. So I think it's really unfortunate to use this process to further vilify folks who are in a very vulnerable situation, and to continue this criminalization of poverty in a country where inequality has gotten worse and worse every year for the last 5 or 6 decades. I had some other things that I was going to say, but I wanted to say that I think this is a really small step toward reducing some of the harm that has befallen and will this winter further befall some of our most needy neighbors. This can't be the only thing that the city does, but this game of saying, well, we want a better place for the homeless, we really care about the homeless, we just want a better place, has been the way that a number of services have been killed and forestalled. It's time to do something now, and this is a good first step. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you for speaking, Steve. Our next registrant is Tammy Enos, Femright Drive, Madison, opposed and wishing to speak. Tammy, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to just reiterate exactly what Kevin had said earlier regarding the safety of the kids, the church. I live on Femright Drive. I've been here for 30 years. We have no police presence in our area at all, and my biggest concern is the safety of the businesses, the homes, the residential homes that are still over in this area. There is no close place for them to get food, to get groceries, or anything like that without crossing 51. I'm completely opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Let's go back to and see if we can get Jeff Gillis unmuted. Jeff, you have 3 minutes. We are not hearing you. Do you have an unmute button maybe on your microphone or your computer?
Yeah, Jeff, you are unmuted on our end. I see that you're raising your hand. I don't believe that you had left and entered back in as I suggested. I think that might be the best solution. If you could do that and then try to come back in and speak. Okay, it looks like Jeff.
Okay. We will move on then. I will read the rest of the registrants that do not wish to speak, but that are available to answer questions into the record. The next one is Kyle Rip, Prairie Dock Drive, Madison, opposed, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Amy Niemitzschnick, Verona Road, Madison, opposed, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, representing Cert Co. Incorporated, Femrite Drive on Daniel Street, Madison. Justin Martin, Ellen Avenue, Madison, support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Then we have some additional registrants who do not wish to speak and have not indicated that they're available to answer questions. Are there any questions of any of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, if we still are unable to hear from Jeff, let's try once more.
Yep, Jeff, you are unmuted. Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, good.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, Jeff.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. There's a lot to cover here. It's a complicated issue. I'm in construction and development, and I really have trouble understanding the process the city's going through here, which the private sector would never be allowed to do. To have something probably 78 or 80% built out before zoning is approved, hasn't been passed by the Plan Commission, Council, and I do want to remind the mayor and the council that this is a democratic society. In this process that's being used, that is being ramrodded through, is not democratic, and that bothers me not only for this issue, but future issues that may be coming, forward. Yes, I understand this is an emergency order. So I think Mr. O'Keefe, who I'm not sure, to be honest with you, I apologize for being extraordinarily blunt, but I'm not sure if I can believe a word that comes out of his mouth, because frankly, his tune has changed from meeting to meeting. And I hope that's not the case with the rest of the city staff. If there are 200 homeless people in the city of Madison, that is 1/1000th of the Madison population. I think the money should be spent on other issues such as abuse, sexual abuse, child abuse. I think those are bigger issues than what you guys are looking at right now. And it really upsets me, and I'm sure a number of the other business owners probably won't be as direct as I am, but this is not the process as a private sector we could get away with. And as a plan commission sitting there, I think they need to look at themselves in the mirror and understand they were elected to follow the process, and this is not the process. Couple questions. Was there a permit issued? Has there been any stormwater management plan? It doesn't look like it. If I were a private sector doing 1.8 acres, I would be required to do stormwater management. What is to stop the city from developing the acreage to the south? Nothing. We need, as the neighbors, the business area around here, we need to be assured that you're not going to expand this camp. Mr. O'Keefe, once again, told us in our preliminary meeting or first meeting that this was a 2-year project. It was asked if the city would be willing to sign some agreement that within 3 years, this camp would no longer be there. He said, oh, no, absolutely not. What's the truth? What's the truth? How long would that camp be there?
Jeff, that concludes your 3 minutes. Thank you for speaking. Are there any questions of any of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? And as Heather mentioned, we have several staff here from engineering, from police, from a variety of staff. Matt Tucker from zoning. Any questions of any of our staff? Commissioner Cantrell.
Can someone address the question that one of the speakers raised on how it's being constructed before Plan Commission and city approval? And I understand it's an emergency aspect, but can you elaborate on that, please?
Heather?
Sure, I can. So under the emergency order, a lot of the details were spelled out that the city may move forward with site preparation work, so long as the emergency order does end on December 31st, 2021. And at that time, all zoning and permitting does need to be in place in order for the use to continue. The main, practical reason for the emergency order was the sense of urgency around the coming winter months. I can tell you that interagency staff team has been meeting to address a lot of the details around permitting, including campground permitting with public health, a lot of the building permit issues in building inspection, and Matt can address anything specific there. But really have been focusing on moving forward in a way that, given the staff interaction, we're confident that permits will be awarded ultimately as this moves forward.
Thank you. Another question is, can someone speak to the screening of any individuals that may reside in this mission camp?
Matt Tucker.
Sure, I can take a shot at that. So
Okay.
Part of what we've been looking at for this site is to have the site be enclosed and contained, but also be designed in a way that isn't unfriendly or industrial in nature to the people who are going to be living in this community for an extended period of time. The site is controlled with a fence. Basically, you can think of the standpoint of kind of who's coming in and out. So there's a 6-foot high fence that has been erected around the site. It includes slats. These are plastic pieces that are stuck into the chain link fence that provide some level of screening that's not completely see-through, but it's really not intended to be completely see-through. It's intended to have some sort of privacy seclusion, if you will, but yet not be a barrack, if you can think along those lines. And the fence, I think Heather showed pictures of the fence earlier.
Yeah, that's the fence screening, but I was thinking about screening of individuals that would be residing on the site, and that's not in your realm; it's in someone else's realm, and I'm sure that
Jim O'Keefe, could you have an answer for that, please?
Commissioner Cantrell, I thought that might be the screening you were asking about, and so we've been as clear as we can be as this whole process has unfolded, that it is of paramount importance how we go through the process of identifying who would be asked to move to the Dairy Drive location. That is a process that is beginning now with a refinement of a census or a registry, if you will, of who it is that we're hoping to attract to locations other than Rindle park. So we are in the process. We're probably a day or two away from selecting an operator partner. And so we will begin, yet this week, we will begin that process of evaluating. The primary focus, at least initially, is the group of people who have been camping at Rindle Park. We'll begin the process of evaluating and discussing, including with them, who makes sense, who we think would be most successful at this location, both from the perspective of is the site compatible with them and their needs, and then how they'll fit in that environment. So it's a process that we recognize is one of the most important steps that we'll need to take, and it lies ahead.
Another question, I have a follow-up. This is an ongoing problem. We've had this problem for years, and other organizations have provided at least some temporary housing. And I'm assuming that those organizations and that may be the operator who takes on this task had certain criteria that they would have to evaluate people, whether, like you said, would be appropriate for a site like this. But I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of a screening or criteria that you will have so that some individuals that may not be appropriate here would not be allowed in this encampment. Is that correct?
So you are correct in that we will be drawing on the experiences of organizations that have set up these kinds of arrangements. But I would hasten to point out that you're likely talking about the tiny house village, which is a very different arrangement than this, in that it is intended to be an arrangement that people will reside in for an extended period of time. This is not at the campground. We don't anticipate that people will stay at the campground for a prolonged period of time. Indeed, we'll be providing paid staff to provide the kinds of assistance that will help connect people to more permanent, more stable housing arrangements. Okay. So it's a little bit different, but we certainly know that there's experience that has been gained in the operation of those tiny house villages, and we will absolutely be drawing on it. So I'm just not at this point. I'm not in a position to say definitively that somebody that might have a sexual offense in their background would be automatically precluded from using the Dairy Drive campground, but it'll be part of the evaluations that we do and the decisions that we make.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cantrell. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. One other question probably for Jim. The plan mentioned transportation coordination as part of the role of the on-site staff. Would that include transportation to the beacon and other areas where there are kind of coordinated services for folks?
Jim?
Yes, Commissioner, we're aware that this site does have some transportation challenges. We'll be providing assistance for those who are able to use the public transit system. We'll provide assistance to help them do so. And we also understand that that might not work for everybody. And so there will be accommodations in the operations plan, and there will be accommodations in operations budget to provide other types of transportation connections, including those that you described and beyond that, connecting people to grocery outlets, connecting people to laundry, and certainly for helping them get to services that they might need.
Great, thank you. And one other question. I seem to recall when we looked at some of the other tiny house villages, that there were a set of, like house rules or something similar to when you would sign an apartment lease, also kind of that set the rules for the area. Is that something that you anticipate the management staff would develop as well?
I do, yes.
Great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Solheim. Commissioner Fernandez.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Zellers. I have to say initially that, of course, I really heartily support the city's efforts to do something, creative and effective about the homeless issue and to serve our, very vulnerable population. I'm really concerned, though, as Commissioner Cantrell said and others said, about the process here. There seem to be so many unanswered questions, not even a manager on the site, not necessarily criteria even in place for who would be in there. So my question for staff, and I also am very cognizant of the emergency nature of this and understand the effort that's been put into it. So I want to be respectful of all of that. But given the many outstanding questions and given the emergency nature of this, would it be possible to grant this a 1-year permit or something of that nature so that we can do what's necessary for this coming winter and then work out some of these kind of serious questions about that I think really people do deserve answers to. One, and let me just toss a couple of individual questions in there, but that's the big question: is could we grant something that's compatible with this emergency rather than sort of a perpetual situation? But I have questions about meals. How is that? How are people going to obtain their food? Are there cooking facilities there? I'm not sure that I understood that there were, other than maybe a microwave or something. The other questions are, what percentage of the population at Rheindal would this potentially serve? I'm not really that familiar with the encampment over there, but is 30 a drop in the bucket? Is 30 half of the situation? Is it 90% of the situation? Is there a proposal that the access to this would be controlled in any way? In other words, a person can come and go as they please. I am hoping that's the case, but is there some actual security arrangement in that regard? And finally, are there other sites that are under consideration that either could be added to this one or have already been rejected? So I know that's a lot of questions, but the most important one in my mind is there possibly some kind of emergency approval that would, get us where we need to be for this year, while some of the other questions that lie ahead can lie behind us as we make that decision.
Thank you, Commissioner. Heather, can you take a crack at most of those and maybe pass on some of them to other staff?
Sure. I'll start with the first question. Is really about the time, duration of the approval. And I just want to remind the Plan Commission, this is a brand new zoning district, the Mission Camp District, where this use is allowed as either a permitted or conditional use. And there are some clear supplemental regulations regarding the allowance of this as a permitted use. And so I want to share screen here and go over some of those supplemental regulations. So first of all, its operation must be by a religious institution, nonprofit, or governmental entity. Second, here in B, this is really important for this case, the Mission Camp use shall be permitted in the Mission Camp District if it's owned, operated, or funded by the City of Madison. And otherwise, conditional, even approving a conditional use with a specified duration of time can be questionable. We have done it as a plan commission and city for things like parking lots. And we always have continuing jurisdiction with conditional uses that can come back to the plan commission. But in this case, the rezoning to a mission camp district would allow this mission camp that's owned and funded by the city of Madison to proceed as a permitted use. And so I want to, staff would not recommend that the plan commission forward that recommendation along to the council. But, we hope that knowing that all of these supplemental regulations must be met by December 31st in order for this use to continue on this property can give some comfort to the plan commission and ultimately the common who authorized the emergency order back in late August. I think a lot of the other questions are pretty detailed, the food related questions. So we, even the supplemental requirements don't allow open fires, but certainly cooking devices outdoors. I think that cooking of meals will likely be a mix of microwave / hot plate and outdoor cooking. And if there's anyone here who would like to provide more detail about that, please feel free to raise your hand, colleagues. And Commissioner Fernandez, I'm trying to think through what your other questions were, and those were the two that I thought maybe I could take a first stab at. Does anyone else have answers to other components of the question?
Jim O'Keefe.
Thank you, Chair. I can try to pick up some of those. I just want to begin by saying that, Commissioner, that many of the issues that have been raised and discussed are certainly front and center with us as well, and they're part of what will be an operations plan for the operation of this campground. We know that. So, for example, that plan will speak to the property management aspect of how this campground will function, and it will speak to the kinds of staff support that we will bring to the users of the campground. So many of those decisions are going to happen very, very quickly now as we formalize the arrangement with an operator and then turn our attention toward how this is actually going to work. You asked about how or what percentage of the current users at Rindle Park might be accommodated at Dairy Drive. I would point out that Dairy Drive is one of at least two alternatives to unsheltered homelessness that the city is proceeding with. I'm not in a position yet tonight, but I think very quickly we will have a second alternative, which we hope to make available on a timeline that is very, very close to the Dairy Drive opening, which is in that mid to late November period of time. There are anywhere between 60 and 70 people at Rindle Park currently, and so this is not a matter of picking up that encampment and moving it to Dairy Drive, but it's an alternative to that arrangement that we think might work well for some of the users at Rindle Park. We know what happens. We've unfortunately gained a lot of experience about what can happen when this kind of arrangement is unstructured and unmanaged. And so Dairy Drive is really not looking to replicate Rindle Park, the Rindle Park experience, but to find an alternative, something that works better for it. Heather touched some on how meals will be handled, what she didn't mention. She wouldn't know that there are already conversations going on among the network of service agencies that support this community's population of people experiencing homelessness around meals. So there will be donations. There'll be a coordinated effort to try to meet much of the food needs of this population. I don't know, Commissioner, if there are other questions that either Heather or I have not answered yet. But if
Commissioner
there are,
Fernandez, did you have any follow-up?
No, I place a great deal of faith in the city staff in this. I have to say that I would say at this point, I feel supportive, but it's there's so many unanswered questions. It's a bit of a stretch. It definitely places a lot of faith in the city staff to address these problems as they may come up.
Thank you, Commissioner. Alder Heck.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. I guess I have a question for Heather. From what I see, how this relates to the current situation or future situation in Rindall Park is not really relevant to our standards of approval for a zoning amendment. For instance, there obviously will still be people in Rindall Park after some number of people move here. I think it's relevant to discuss the screening requirements that the operator might have and things like that. But the greater problem of homelessness and those without homes in general in Madison is not pertinent to this, our consideration. Would you agree with that?
Heather?
Somewhat. I do think that the Plan Commission should weigh the comprehensive plan recommendations around, supporting city initiatives to mitigate problems associated with homelessness. This is one of many along a spectrum, right? We're doing a lot of things as a city, and certainly the county is too, to combat homelessness and the problems that come along with it. And I think that the Plan Commission isn't blind to that. Our comp plan certainly wasn't blind to that. And that can be a major consideration in the decision on this rezoning, as kind of mentioned in the staff report. But I think you're right that, while this is one of the alternatives to Rindall, and an alternative that's, a much different living situation, right? With temperature controlled units, on-site management, and many other things that differ from Rindall. Just comparing it with Rindall, I guess isn't necessarily pertinent to the discussion tonight. It really should be, does this site, is this site appropriate for rezoning into the new Mission Camp district? But I think the Plan Commission should keep in mind the comprehensive plan recommendations surrounding the city's support to combat homelessness in making that decision.
Thanks. That's good advice. Just a couple of other small questions, General. I want to make sure that those who gave public comment understand who's on Plan Commission. Can you tell us the makeup of Plan Commission, like how many are elected officials and how many are residents?
Sure, I can. So 3 of our commissioners are also members of the Common Council. They're elected to serve as part of the Common Council. And their names are showing up here with the ALD prefix in front of them. So Alders Heck, Alboris, and Lemmer are the 3 Alder members of the Plan Commission appointed by the mayor to serve on this commission. And then the other 6 members of the Plan Commission are residents of the city of Madison and appointees of the mayor who are also approved by the Common Council. They're not elected to fill this role. They are appointed volunteers serving in this capacity.
Thank you. And then just one more quick question. This item, if approved, will then go on to council where alders only will make a decision about it. I also wanted to recognize that when the emergency situation was recognized by council, I think the vote by alders was 17-2 to declare the emergency with respect to homelessness that enabled this process to speed up. Is your recollection that it was a vote something like that? I don't know if you remember, and if you don't have it at easily accessible. We can answer that later, maybe.
Yeah, my recollection is that it was close to unanimous. I don't know the exact number, but you're correct that this decision from the Plan Commission this evening would serve as a recommendation to the Common Council for their meeting of November 2nd, where the final decision would be made.
All right, thanks. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Alder. Thank you, Heather. Are there other questions of staff? Are there any other questions of staff? I would be looking for a motion then. Commissioner Cantrell.
I will move the Plan Commission forward the rezoning at 3202 Jerry Drive from IL to MC to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Solheim. Commissioner Cantrell, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I agree with many of the speakers that this is a very complex issue and one that obviously we need to address, and we need to address very quickly because of the onset of winter. I understand the emergency nature and the reason why the city is under construction right now of this project because of the timing I understand the frustration that the business community may have, that the business community probably could not get this accomplished with the codes we have, but because of the situation that we have in the cities, the need for the encampment now, and that's the reason why we need to move forward quickly. I do think it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and our need to address the homelessness nature of the situation and homelessness in the city. And I do believe that the city will be monitoring this very closely. And this is an experiment. And I think that because it's the first one, I think that it will be carefully considered and monitored. And, I think having it across the street from a fire station is a good thing. And I think that, and my hope is that this will be successful. And I also think that this is probably a temporary facility and one that maybe in a few years, hopefully very short time, we'll have more permanent housing for these individuals or individuals that may stay for a few years or less. So that's why I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there further comment or discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. We will move on then to the next items on our agenda, items 8, 9, and 10, which we will consider together. Agenda item 8, Legistar 67916. Agenda item 9, Legistar 67276. And agenda item 10, Legistar 67277. Located at 2002 through 2004 Winnebago Street, 6th Alder District. Consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a one-story commercial building. consideration of a conditional use in the traditional shopping street district for a building exceeding 3 stories and 40 feet in height, and consideration of a conditional use in the TSS district for a building with non-residential uses occupying less than 50% of the ground floor frontage, including all frontage at a street corner, to allow construction of a 4-story mixed-use building with approximately 1,050 square feet of commercial space and 24 apartments, as well as approving a certified survey map of property owned by John Fontaine Incorporated, located at 2002 Winnebago Street. We will hear a brief overview of this proposal by planner Chris Wells. Chris.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Plan Commission. Staff believe the forced passing with 10-foot setbacks at the 4th floor along the 2 street frontages can be found consistent with both adopted plans. While the density is higher than typically seen in the NMX district, staff note that the comprehensive plan states on page 17, quote, "The general density range is intentionally broad for most categories because building form, not density, should be the primary consideration when determining whether a building fits appropriately within a given neighborhood, district, or corridor." Staff note that there are also 2 4-story buildings within 400 feet of the subject site on sites which are also zoned TSS.
Looks like Chris has frozen. Heather, can you take over?
I can take over. I think the request does include a request for demolition of the existing stop-and-go single-story convenience store. We believe that demolition meets the demolition standards, the new ones specifically. And then the conditional use, as Chris mentioned, is for the height of the building, and also a second conditional use is for a very minor departure from the requirement that would require 50% of the ground floor to be commercial. In this case, about 49% of the ground floor is dedicated to commercial space. And so staff feels ultimately that both conditional uses meet the given standards or meet the conditional use standards, and supports the request. Thank you, Chris. You had it there. Sorry about that.
Okay, it happens. Technical glitches do happen. Thank you, Heather, for taking over for Chris, and thank you, Chris. We do have a registrant, David Schmieding, Russell Street, Madison, opposed and wishing to speak. David, you have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Well, first, I would just like to thank you. And of course, I would prefer if this could be delayed till in-person meetings could resume. But moving on, I'd point out that I was sent no notice despite being 1 block or just 400 feet away. I did notify my Alder of that fact. I don't know if this is regular and appropriate or not. I'm used to getting such notices. The commission has previously expressed not wanting to canyonize Shanks Corners, and has already injected quite a bit of density into the neighborhood. All of the adjacent buildings are 2 stories. I was sad to hear that Debo Labs lost their bid to purchase the lot for additional parking. I am glad to hear that of the few trees still around, that they're not going to be planning on knocking down any more of them. I'd point out that it seems as though urban developers seem to have this process pretty well figured out. And I'm sorry to sound cynical, but it seems like as long as they ask for everything at scale they could possibly want, building in space to sacrifice, in this case, including, the community and the exercise space, other things like top floor porch spaces, or even studio apartments in general, or in this case. knowing that they may have to slightly reduce scale. And I'm surprised I'm the only commenter, but without signage facing the immediate road or these notices going out, I shouldn't be surprised at this point. But anyway, it just seems like they know how to game the process with the commission at this point. I know you likely need specific or actionable concerns, but I don't do this professionally. But I'd point out that this is 24 units with 27 beds and one shop and only 14 parking spots as it is already. Like I said, we've already injected a lot of density into the area in the last couple of years, and Atwood and Winnebago is already not great for pedestrians. We also host events here and has lost most of the parking in the previous years. I know you guys don't like cars, but what about visitor parking, event parking, and just pedestrians in general? I'm worried that you're going to make between Russell and 2nd Street the next, tree lane at Mineral Point Road. Please preclude underground parking and limit this to 2 stories or maybe 3 if it's on stilts with lots of parking. With my remainder of my time, I just point out this is not Section 8 housing. I hope you guys will reject, deny, or delay this conditional use, and I hope you'll stop gentrifying my neighborhood. I really want to thank you for hearing me. Again, I apologize if any of my comments or concerns are untimely, out of order. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, David. We have 2 additional registrants, Kevin Burrow, University Avenue, Middleton, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, representing Kanothi Bruce Architects. Brandon Cook, Baldwin Street, support, not wishing to speak, available to answer questions. He indicates he's not representing anybody, but I think he might be the developer. Are there questions for any of the registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Alder Heck.
Thank you. I think Chris can probably answer this. Chris, can you discuss, given the various requests that are in front of us, what type of notification postcards would have gone out? And also, perhaps you have knowledge of neighborhood meetings and things that may have occurred too.
Yes, all property owners and I believe tenants or kind of current residents within 200 feet of the subject property would receive a postcard. I'm not sure of the exact date of the neighborhood meeting, but I know I attended a virtual meeting that was relatively well attended by perhaps 30 or 40 residents on that date. If you give me a minute, but I know there was at least one neighborhood meeting.
And that was probably organized by the Alder?
Yes.
Okay. Just one other quick question. In your description that you gave, you mentioned NMX as the zoning, but it's TSS, correct? I think that was just a slip up.
It's NMX, the neighborhood mixed use is the comprehensive plan recommendation for the district, but the current zoning district is TSS.
Oh, I see what you were saying then about density, your argument there. Okay, thanks.
Are there further questions of staff? Seeing none, I would be looking for a motion. Commissioner Cantrell.
I'm going to recommend that the Plan Commission find that the standards are met and approve the demolition permit and the conditional use requests to demolish the one-story commercial building before constructing a 4-story mixed-use building with approximately 1,050 square feet of commercial space and 24 apartments. And also that the Plan Commission forward the associated certified survey map to the City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Fernandez. Commissioner Cantrell, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, just briefly. I understand the individuals, the speaker's concern about density and the change of the neighborhood from a one-story to a four-story with step backs as this building has. But this is exactly where we're wanting to have some additional housing. It's a very desirable neighborhood, as the individual. I'm assuming that's why he lives there, and I'm sure that there's a lot of other individuals that would like to live in this neighborhood. And Madison is going to be experiencing 50,000 more people within the next 20 years, and we're hoping that they live in the center city, so that we don't eat up prime farmland around the city. And this neighborhood, again, is a very desirable one, and where we're expecting to see some additional housing. So that's why I'm supporting this. I think the building is, a very attractive building and one that will fit into the neighborhood quite well. And that's why I'm recommending it be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any further comments or discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we will come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, business by members. Is there any business by members? Seeing no raised hands, we'll move on to the Secretary's report. Heather.
Thank you. Let's see. On October 5th, as you know, the council did approve the demolition ordinance change, and I want to thank you all for working quickly with the new standards that we sent out associated with the demolitions on your agenda this evening. We'll continue working with the applicants who sort of straddled that Common Council approval. So there are still applicants who submitted their applications prior to approval who will be before the Plan Commission at your next couple of meetings, and we're going to work with them to make sure they're comfortable with the Plan Commission reviewing the demolition standards under the new standards adopted by the Council. On November 8th, at your next regular meeting, we'll have the return of the State and Gorham and Johnson project. That's a proposal for a planned development, and it's one that had been referred for a couple of months now. And then I'll mention the second one on that list, out on Felland Road on the far east side, a new multifamily building complex with 134 new units, again on the far northeast side. And then moving on to the November 22nd meeting, right before the Thanksgiving holiday, I'll mention all three projects on the list here. On 2nd Street and East Washington Avenue, Madison Development Corporation's next phase for a new 3-story, 24-unit apartment building. And then 3402 Monroe Street, an amendment to a planned development for the existing bed and breakfast site to accommodate a new community living arrangement and adult daycare facility on that site. And then finally, on Midvale Boulevard, a rezoning to the traditional residential urban 2 district for a new apartment building containing 72 units. And that is where we will leave it for the evening. Thank you very much.
Were you going to mention something about the ADU?
Well, I can mention that as staff, we've been working with a few sponsors, likely sponsors of an accessory dwelling unit ordinance change that may be introduced as soon as November 2nd. If it is, then we'd like to have that. We'd like to have a discussion about that ordinance change at the November 8th Plan Commission meeting with a staff presentation and then action at the later November meeting. I think our first steps are to continue to work with those sponsors and to for the council to introduce that ordinance change.
Okay. Thank you. That then concludes our business. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Cantrell. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Heck. We will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, we will adjourn. And thank you, as always, for your work. And see you soon.